So we'll start with Dan. You got the mic in your hand. I know there's a process. You have, Michelle's your news director. Explain the process of what is the criteria of what actually makes it on air or on the radio or in your column or in your paper.
Yeah. Well, there's never a shortage for news. I mean, we get emails, we get faxes, phone calls, our personal contacts. Every day we're bombarded with news. We got people looking for stories, looking to get something covered. It is a process. Every day, I mean, we're 24/7. We've got somebody there at the station. We have a morning meeting at 9:30. Then we have another meeting at 2 o'clock. And during those meetings, we just go down the list of what we have, what we've got press releases for, what we know is going on. And we pretty much sit at a table like this. There's about 15 of us, the reporters, the producers, the news director, the assistant news director, sometimes our general manager sits in. And we basically, here's what's happening today, what are we going to cover? The first question we always have is, how is this going to impact our viewers? Why do they care? Why do I care? And that can be a very tough thing because, we're an objective industry, but everybody has their opinions on things, and it's a fine balance there. But basically, that's the process. And being in TV, a lot of times we'll do a story just because we have really cool pictures. I mean, we're a visual medium. People like to see those things. That's why sometimes we'll take a live picture from California of a wildfire burning. Has no direct impact on us here, but the pictures look cool. And and last night we took a live shot from San Francisco. But when I personally thought, I was like, well, do we really want to do this? I always ask questions like that. Do we really want to do it? Do we want to cut in? Well, it's a good thing we did because we had 3 phone calls during the news. Like, how come you're not covering this explosion out in the San Francisco area? I'm from there. Well, we did. They just missed it. So, sometimes you think you know what's good, and you're totally wrong. But, when it comes down to doing the story itself, the reporters, if it's a story that they have, they've already got it halfway set up, that's what they'll go for. But there's always, like Bud Foster, and he's incredible. I think we're very fortunate to have Bud Foster at our station. He's down at City Hall every day covering the story. So we pretty much let Bud just take care of city politics, and, we're in good hands. And that's the process. Sometimes it's hard to get a story on the air. Other days it's really easy.
Hey, Dan, is there bias that you can see, identify? You do news in really quick 1 to 3 minute segments, so it's hard to go in depth on things. You've done some in-depth stuff with Vietnam and things. But is there bias that you see? Is there things that get...
To be honest with you, I don't ever see a bias. I mean, that's the #1 rule we have. I mean, all I have, when it comes to the viewers trusting who I am, that's all I've got. So, I mean, I always consider that. Of course, I've got my ideas and I've got my thoughts on things, but when I'm writing a story, that's all thrown out the door. And I know I work with everybody who are the same way. I mean, we strive to be fair and objective. But, it almost kind of, during SB 1070, when we're having all these protests, we got in some heated discussions in the newsroom because every Friday these protesters are downtown standing on the corner, and on the 2nd or 3rd Friday I said, why are we covering this again? We're giving them what they want, but it's happening. And especially the one where they went out in the streets and they had to close the streets down. Well, we went live coverage for almost 45 minutes, and as soon as we were done, a news director walked out, and the first thing I said was like, well, we just gave them what we wanted. And she, I was kind of upset about it because I was getting frustrated with all the coverage they were getting. But it's one of those things where, they were having a direct impact on people's traffic, people trying to get home, people trying to get downtown. So when you consider from that angle, that's where it was. But the SB 1070, it has been very polarizing. I mean, we will do a story that I think is so right down the middle, but both sides are going to be upset because people, they're so obsessed with their side.
Okay. With radio, traditionally the way things have been done is mainly based on research and ratings. So when you look at a lot of stations, they program themselves based on what research says the audience is going to want and what's going to get the most ratings. KOLD, for example, which is really our most popular station that we own, does a lot of research. They test the songs, make sure that people like them, that type of thing, and it shows. I mean, the audience loves it. Now with KVOI, which is really kind of a new thing for us, we started doing that in 2001. I wanted to go with programming that I felt would represent our values. There's a lot of talk shows out there, but some of it I think is real inflammatory, and some of it I think is not genuine. It's really entertainment. The people don't really believe what they're saying. They just are entertained. And one of our friends who worked at another station, another talk station, told me when They used to do remote broadcasts. The people that would come out there fully armed and, you know, looking for the black helicopters. It was a pretty crazy looking crowd. So I didn't want to have that. We wanted to have an intelligent talk kind of a format, and that's why we went with what we went with our national shows. Now, when you look at Wake Up Tucson, that was, you know, an experiment. We didn't know. These guys are not broadcasters. They're business people.
That's pretty obvious.
And actually,
well, we probably have the easiest job in the world when it comes to deciding, in this room, I should say, deciding what we're going to use as news stories and not, because, as I said earlier, our audience is very clearly defined. So a news story has to, one, be about Tucson, the Tucson region. If it's affecting Phoenix, in fact, we do readership surveys every year, and I'm a geek about that stuff, from the TV days. One of the things that, the survey question we ask every year that comes with the lowest rating is, nobody cares about anything happening in Phoenix, except at the state capitol. But if Phoenix has got a new Google plant going in, or a new Insight.com thing, or GoDaddy's doing something, our audience doesn't care. So we skip that stuff. So one, it has to be about Tucson, and one, second, it has to be about business or relate to the business community. Give an example, we don't necessarily, although our graphics people like us to keep design in mind, we don't necessarily do anything for pretty pictures. And an example I'll give is if people who are in the commercial real estate business, probably one of the toughest things they've had to deal with in the last couple of years is the City of Tucson Certificate of Occupancy regulation. No other print publications covered that. I mean, the Star barely gives it not much notice, and yet we got on it. It's kind of a dull story, but it is one of the things that has really set back the City of Tucson in terms of commercial enterprises. In terms of slants on a news story, we're pro-business, and it's got to be about business. One of the things, we'll see how it plays in this room, but one of the issues that we have generally supported, both editorially and we stay up with, is the proposed Rosemont copper mine. To me, I'm flabbergasted every time I mean, if you look at the issue, the Rosemont copper mine is an economic development issue versus an environmental issue. And I'm flabbergasted every time I pick up the Arizona Daily Star and read their stories about the Rosemont mine, and I guarantee you that 99% of them have been written by their environmental writer. That is a conflict of interest. Yet the Star does not understand it or see it. But and they think they're asking the tough questions. I don't think so.
Save an orchid, David, save an orchid.